Hi friends. I'm PK sir. I'm back with another video. Friends, in this video, before I get into the topic, I just need a small favor from you guys. I hope you guys are really enjoying the videos that I'm making. So I'm putting in a lot of efforts, late nights and stuff like that. So because of these videos, I think I'm just giving you a better opinion of what's happening. If that is the case, then I need a small help from you guys. I want to make these videos reach more people. Now, if that needs to happen, then definitely you people has to comment, because based on the opinion, I mean the information that I received, the more the comments that you see, the better the YouTube channel will recommend my videos to others. So that will really help me, because if my effort reaches more number of people, then that will really motivate me. It's a psychological factor. So I hope you guys will do me this favor. So please comment more. Please comment more about the video. Please spare your time. I know your time is really valuable. Already you're giving me good amount of your time for watching my videos. I really hope I'm not wasting your time. But at the same time, please do comment, guys, and subscribe to my channel, of course, if you have not subscribed. So that would be really of great help. Right, guys? So anyway, so let's start with the video. I've got another fantastic topic today. Even though it's gonna be a short session, but still the topic is really interesting. So, what's the topic? Is the Indian economy really that strong? This has been a subject of debate in many channels since last 2 years. Some say yes, it is strong. Some say it is not strong. That this and stuff like that. But let's see how it really is. So, Indian economy not so rosy, right? So let's try to understand that. So in this video, we are trying to understand. We are not going to go too much of depth, but it will be a very good beginners video. But still I'll be analyzing things so that it will give you a very good idea with respect to how our economy is right now. Is it really that strong, or is it not, or at least any steps are happening in the right direction, at least steps such that they're trying to make any structural changes, right, to our Indian economy such that it's gonna be on the positive side, it's becoming strong. Or what was the reason? Has it got improved? Yes. Then why? All these questions will be answered. Right, guys? So without wasting any further time, let's move on. Okay. So that's issue number one. The issue number one is fall in investment. Doesn't sound good. So let's see what's happening. Investment is adding to our productive capacity, building infrastructure, factories, enhancing the skill of the workforce. To do all these things, we basically need what? Investment. Now, as you know that that's the reason Mr. Modi is moving on to so many foreign countries and then asking them to come and invest in India. The reason is that would help us to build good infrastructure, because without infrastructure you can't do anything. That's must for any company. If at all you wanna go in the direction of development, and factories, of course, industries, and of course when there are factories you need skilled workforce, so that is also important, right? As you all know, when there was this kind of when Deng Xiaoping in China, when he took the revolution from 1979, the first thing that they've done in China is they've started allowing all the foreign direct investment, and they've invited everybody to come there and make in China. And at the same time, what they've done is that they know that they need a skilled workforce to work in the factories. So they started vocational courses like 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, and then they train the workers, and then they'll place them in factories. Train them, place them in factories. Train them, place them in factories. And that's how China now, as you can see, it has become a biggest force in the world, and that was the reason. So I hope we are also at least since last 4 years we are on the right path, but still there has been a fall in investment. So the investment rate is the lowest in 15 years. Pretty bad. It came down from 34% of GDP in 2014 to 30% currently. There are so many reasons for that. We'll try to see one by one, but right now we are discussing about one single topic, and that topic is our Indian economy really strong now? Answer: we have started with issue number one, and what issue number one says is that there has been a fall in investment, which means is it a positive or negative point? Of course it's negative, and it's really sad to hear that it is lowest in 15 years, right? So right now it's around 30%. See, we cannot blame our government for this as such. My opinion is, because when there is a lot of attractive things happening in USA, and when USA is increasing their interest rates and stuff like that, especially the federal government over there, and Federal Reserve, then obviously what will happen? The investments from the developing countries or emerging economies like India will get routed back to USA. So that's obvious. Earlier it did not happen. Maybe that is also one of the reason. We'll try to anyway analyze. So we cannot blame somebody because these are all external factors that's happening. Are you able to get me right? See, always please try to understand. Generally, in USA, the interest rates that they provide on those, Federal Reserve bonds and stuff like that, it's gonna be very less, almost 0%, or something around that. As a result, always the investors they look for emerging economies like India because they can earn more return on their investment. That's the reason they are, India is attracting them and they're coming to India and they are investing, right? But now what's happening in USA, when USA is trying to what offer you more for your investment, then it's very obvious that from here all the investments will be routed back, right? Chalo. So the first reason was fall in investment, which is a negative point. It doesn't look really good for our economy. The second reason is IIP growth. That's industry. It talks about the industrial growth. So IIP was growing at 6% in 2016 but reduced to 2% by mid 2017, and you know the reason for that: demonetization. So that's pretty much expected to happen. Whenever there is demonetization, definitely this industrial production will come down. However, it picked up subsequently by fourth quarter of 2017, but it is yet to regain the desired place for 7 to 7.5% of GDP growth. As you can see here, so it's very clear that what's happening is it's coming down, right? As you can see. So IIP basically talks about index of industrial production. So it literally tells you what is the growth with respect to the industry, right? So what is IIP? Just remember this: index of industrial production. Okay, so what's happening? It was normally growing at 60%, I mean sorry, 6% in 2016. That is after 1 year that Modi government has coming, I mean the third year, but reduced to 2%. This is expected because when there is demonetization, this is expected to happen. However, it picked up subsequently by fourth quarter of 2017, but it is yet to regain the desired pace, that is the pace of our GDP growth. So when GDP is growing at this much, then even the industrial growth also has to be matching the pace of GDP. But unfortunately, that is not happening, which is again not a good news. So let's move on. Issue number three: bank financing. So even bank financing also tells you about the health of an economy. You can just by studying bank financing in a particular economy, you can easily say whether the economy is healthy or the health of the economy is pretty bad. Let's try to see what's happening in our country. Thereby, we can understand what is the economy right now. So gross NPAs, which were about 5% in early 2015, now it has got increased to 10%. Are you able to get me? Which means, is it good or bad? Obviously, bad news. But please try to understand one thing. It has got nothing to do with the current government. It has got nothing to do with the current government. To be precise, the Modi government. The reason, this is after the RBI's forcible implementation of asset quality review guidelines. Which means what has actually happened is these NPAs were the result of, it has started since that economic recession. It dates back to 2008. Please understand. See, many of people they are arguing, saying that it is a mistake of UPA government. It is a mistake of NDA government. Are you able to get me? This government blames that government blames this government. Let's stop all this bullshit first of all. Maybe there might be reason because whenever the loans are happening, definitely in our country you will have influences happening from MPs and MLAs of respective governments, and as a result you will be forced to give loans even though they are not healthy, and then ultimately that may get, I mean, would have got converted into MPs. I can understand that, but still, what is the percentage of that happening? It will be very less. So actually what has happened, please try to understand. Before 2008, it was all golden days around the world, right? The growth was severe, the globalization was going at full phase, and as a result, all the projections that were given by all the infrastructure companies in India, where, for example, I've taken infrastructure companies, all the companies doing different business, they gave optimistic projections. So they thought that their business is going to be very healthy for the next 4 years and 5 years and stuff like that. Accordingly, they expanded, they have invested, and they have taken loans from banks, and then they have invested. But ultimately, what has happened? The recession has come, and the things have turned upside down. And all of a sudden, all of a sudden, there is no business. So when there is a slump in business, automatically what will happen? You cannot repay back the loan. Then the question that you can ask me is, if that is the case, then this 5% should have become 10% in 2012, 2011, or 2013 itself, right? Why this 5% has become 10% now? Which means what was happening is, at that time only the NPAs were started to happen. But what banks have done is that they went for restructuring and trying with renegotiation. What do you mean by this restructuring and renegotiation? It means that, for example, let's say you are Vijay Malia and you have taken 10,000 crores of money, and after that your business has gone down, that is Kingfisher. Then immediately the banks are not reflecting that as an NPA. So what they will do is, they will call Vijay Malia to come upon, and then they'll negotiate with Vijay Malia saying that, okay, fine, now how much you can pay. Maybe he said that I can't pay anything now, or maybe not even 1,000 crores. Then they say that, okay, fine, let's restructure the loan, let me reduce the interest rate a bit, and let me give you another 5 years of time. So now you try to improve your business, try to do something, and then try to repay the loan. Are you able to get me? Which means now the bank, after this negotiation, they will not reflect that as an NPA. Are you able to get me? So that's why it was still 5%. Like this, for each and every loan which should have been reflected as an NPA, the banks were covering. They were covering the NPAs. That's what has happened. That's the reason it was not reflected at that particular point of time. They were renegotiating, or they were giving some sort of leverages to all these guys who have taken, especially the infrastructure companies were performing really bad, and they were giving second chance, third chance, fourth chance, fifth chance. But still, they were not at all reflecting those NPAs in their balance sheet. And finally, because of Raghuram Rajan, and he forced this asset quality review guidelines, they have forced the implementation on banks. Now banks has got no other choice but to what? So they said that you have an NPA, then you reflect it. Why are you covering it up? Enough, all your whatever the things that you have done, you gave first chance, second chance, third chance to the guys who have taken loans and all. Now it's done. Now that you feel that there is an NPA, now you reflect it, you reflect in your balance sheet. Now don't cover it up. And that's the reason all of a sudden, from 5% it went to 10%. So please understand, this is what has happened. So don't have any misconceptions, right? And then the next one is, the bank's lending rate grown at 10% during 2014-16. It is now growing at 6%, which means obviously these two are interconnected. You connect the dots. When there is a lot of NPAs that's happening, obviously banks cannot give loans that freely, right? And obviously, as a result, lending growth rate will fall down. That's what has happened from 10% to 6%. This is expected when there is huge NPAs like 10%. And this is not commensurate with the GDP growth of about 7%, isn't it? So when there is a GDP growth rate of 7%, your lending rate also should be very healthy. But here it is pretty much unhealthy, which means this shows that our Indian economy health is not all that good. Sorry for that. Our Indian economy is not that good. The health of our Indian economy is not that good. That's what we can understand from this. Now, moving on to the next one. I hope you can see this particular graph. Let's see what's happening. Look at the gross NPAs. NPAs. Look at the NPAs in 2001 to 11%, 9.5%, 7%. Then it came down. 2007, 8, 2008, 9. As you can see, it was pretty less. Then from here after, the bad time has started, but still it has not grown like that. The reason is they were covering, right? And now all of a sudden it has got increased, especially in the year 2016-17. Reason? Because of the guidelines from RBI. And look at the credit growth. These are all the golden time, especially this era is the golden time. After golden time, what has happened? See, there has been a slight drop, and now the drop was very severe. As you can see here, the drop is very severe. The reason is NPS. This is the reason for this reaction. Okay, when the NPS is very high, banks are really fearing to give loans, and as a result, the lending or the loan or the credit growth is not happening that healthy. And you can see the graph itself is, you see here, credit growth has gone down, which is not at all good for an economy. Are very simple here. If an economy has to grow, credit flow must be there, credit growth must be there. Unless the credit grows, it means that you are not at all giving loans to anybody to do any sort of business. Then where will be the growth of employment? Where the employment will be created? Employment will not be created. When there is no creation of employment, how GDP will grow? So that will ultimately show negative effect on GDP also. So this is very bad sign. So a healthy economy means credit growth must be healthy. This is not a good sign. And you see NPS have shoot. You see here, this area, all of a sudden it shooted up. Can you see that? So here these guys were covering. This is the area where they have covered. The banks have covered their NPS by going for renegotiation, restructuring of loans, all those things. I hope you guys can have got the point, right? Let's move on. So which means, are the statisticians wrong? Sir, we have seen that GDP of India is the fastest growing in the world, surpassing China. If that is the case, we are all of the opinion that the economy is very healthy. Then which means you are saying that it is not that healthy. You were pointing out certain points. Issue 1, issue 2, bank financing, industrial growth, index of industrial production. Then you mean to say that the statisticians are wrong? No, they are not wrong. Statisticians are doing the honest job, but the formal sector figures come very fast. Formal sector means, I hope you understand, organized sector, the multinational companies where you are trying to pay the taxes, you are trying to register under the government companies act stuff, blah blah blah. This is referred as formal sector. Informal sector means they will not have any government will not have any control over them. So it's not easy to collect this data from informal sector the way you collect the data from formal sector. So now all these GDP numbers that the statisticians have calculated is based on formal sectors, because that data availability comes very fast. But here you don't have any data from informal sector, so it has got time lag. And once the informal figures are taken into consideration, there is every possibility that the GDP figures will be reduced ultimately in the subsequent revisions. That's what we are hoping to happen, right? Chalo. So this was one thing, but the inflation is under consistent control, as you can see here. Now it's almost 1.1%. This is under control. So there is consistent inflation control. This is one good thing, of course. And you can see other things over here. So CPI, consumer price index, it has fallen. Wholesale price index also, you can see this is CPI. This wholesale price index, it almost went to negativity. It's really surprising. So if you look at these economic factors, it really shows that it's very healthy. You see, the fiscal discipline, fiscal deficit is continuously reducing. Big, reduced, reduced, reduced. Are you able to get me? And you look at all these things. So gradual pickup in investments. All these are positive points, right? So there are not only negatives, there are also positives. But these positives are not because of internal structural reforms inside the India, but it is because of external advantages that we have got by way of cheap commodity prices, cheap crude oil, cheap gold. Because of that, our import expenses have gone down. Our fiscal deficit has started improving. That is also one of the reason. Our current account deficit also has started becoming better. So it's not because of course there are some internal structural reforms happening, but that was not that sufficient. But we got benefited and our economy is looking healthy, not because of too much of internal structural reforms, but because of the external things that's happening. Let's see that. So issue number 4 is commodity prices. Oil, gold, coal, they constitute around 15% of our total imports. Over the past few years, India's trade sector improvement is because of declining commodity prices. This has got declined, this has got declined, this has got declined. This is the reason, not experts. If it is experts, it means that we can really say, yeah, our economy health is really going good. But that is not the case because of external advantage. External things favored us. There is nothing that we have done something great. Only time has helped us. So time did help us. Are you able to get me? So when the commodity prices increase again, India's trade will come under pressure. That's what is happening right now. Oil prices have started increasing, and you can see how much pressure we are facing right now. Yes, yes. Let's move on. And the issue number 5 is general government debt. So combined fiscal deficits of center and states is how much? 6.5% of GDP. I hope you know what is fiscal deficit, right? Fiscal deficit literally means how much money government has got and how much money it has to expend. So always the expenditure will be greater than the money that government receives. I'm trying to tell it in a layman terms so that you'll understand easily. I'll make up a separate video. There I'll discuss fiscal deficit in detail. But right now just understand in simple terms. for just like a layman. So fiscal deficit literally tells you how much money government has to borrow. Suppose government has got 100 rupees, it is receiving 100, it has to pay 120. Are you able to get me? So expenditure is 120, receipts are 100, all sorts of receipts, right? Then it means that it has got fiscal deficit of 20. Now this 20, how it has to cover? By getting borrowing, by borrowing loan, whether from desi sources or from Videsi sources, right? Which means ultimately this much it has to get in the form of loan. Na? That is referred as fiscal deficit in simple terms, right? I'll try to explain you in detail with technical terms when I make up a separate video on that. So combined fiscal deficit of center and states is 6.5% of GDP, which is not good, which is not good. It's pretty high number. India's debt is relatively high at 70% of GDP. To be precise, it's around 68 to 69%, so around 70% of GDP, right? So, okay, I cannot say that it is a number that to be worried upon, but yes, it's not good number. That to that extent, I can say it has not come down in the past 5 years. This is something that we need to worry. This has not come down in past 5 years, but for several emerging market economies, just like India, it came down. So when you are having this additional advantage of enjoying low prices of oil since last 4 or 5 years, you should have used that to reduce all these things, to reduce your debt. But of course, Modi government has done something to reduce the fiscal deficit, and that's the reason our fiscal deficit has got reduced. But still, it's not that good. So it shows hidden vulnerability for India, despite having a biggest advantage that we have enjoyed since last 4 years by having less crude oil prices. We have not really banked upon that advantage. Okay. Instead, we have done certain other things. I'll make up a separate video on that. There is a video called Paying the Price of Oil. So in that video, I'll tell you what did India miss, in the last 3 or 4 years when they had the advantage of relatively low global crude oil prices per barrel. Okay. But right now, what you have to understand is the debt is very high. It should have come down in the past 5 years. It has come down for all the emerging market economies like India, but not for India. And therefore, it shows hidden vulnerability in our country. The final conclusion is very simple. There have been improvements in Indian economy in recent years. This we need to agree because the current government is doing good job to some extent. Okay, they are bringing insolvency and bankruptcy code, and they are trying to bring fugitive economic offenders ordinance to bring these guys like Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, and all. They've got all those things. They're doing it, but the problem is it's not sufficient, and they were compromising at certain areas. However, the improving fundamentals are more due to favorable external circumstances than to hard domestic policy choices, which means all the healthy economy of India that you are hearing and you are seeing right now is more due to favorable external circumstances because of because of cheap commodities like cheap oil, cheap coal, and cheap gold, which are forming our imports, and not because of our own domestic Indian inside the structural changes of the economy. But does that mean that there are no domestic policy changes? Yes, there are. The government is doing something, but the point is when you try to weigh the effects, maybe our economy has improved this much because of internal structural changes. Our economy has got benefited this much because of external. I'm just trying to make you understand. So which means the external benefit that we have enjoyed overriding the Indian benefit. Therefore, because of both these combined together, our economy is looking very healthy. Are you able to get me? So we have got this healthy looking economy, the so called healthy looking economy, more because of external advantages that we have enjoyed, less because of the internal structural policy changes. Are you able to get me? Right. So I can't cover all the economic because economy is an option. So that's why I've just chosen some important areas so that you'll understand it in a better way and an easy way. Right, guys? So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If it is yes, please comment, guys. Please comment. That will really help me. Okay? Comment, comment, comment. Don't forget. And so that's it for today. This is your PK sir signing off, and Jai Hind.